The Bahrain weekend has now been and gone. I'm back with Will and Ben to run you through everything that's happened. Obviously, Max Verstappen's winning again. No surprise compared to last year. And let's be honest, that Red Bull was absolutely flying. But before we get into the Formula One, I will once again, for the first time this year, be running through the Formula Two. Now, after testing, I said that Zane Maloney was going to be one of the drivers to watch this year. And let's just say I was right. He won the feature and the sprint race, which
It's almost like you spend all your time watching F2, Ollie.
really no,
It's weird. That. Yeah, it's weird.
Doesn't ring any bells.
Pretty weird, that, isn't it? Yeah. We'll
But
never again.
this kind of contradicts your point last episode, Will, by saying that testing doesn't mean anything. I said last week when we done our episode that Zane Maloney was fastest. We all said that Prema are going to look incredible and Antonelli and Bierman are going to run through the field like they're the best drivers in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the Premas this weekend had an absolute howler. Qualifying
16th and 18th, weren't it?
No, 18th and 19th.
Ooh, even worse. Even worse.
Going for title contention is what they should be doing, and starting 18th and 19th on the grid is not where they want to be. But Zane Maloney, who will, by the way, I don't know if you've realised, and I don't know if you've watched any of the F2 this weekend, but he is like
a bit of it this. I had a spare couple of 30 minutes to give out, so I did spend a lot of time watching it. Yeah.
Did you realise the livery that Zane Maloney drives in?
I feel like it might have just skimmed over my head.
Ben, do you know?
No, I don't.
He is driving in the beloved Sauber Kick livery. So
yes, no, I did see that. I did see it because I was like, oh, hello. I'm guessing he's part of their academy then.
He is part of the Sauber Academy, same as the reigning Formula 2 world champion, Théo Pourchaire. But, as I was saying, Zane Maloney, absolutely brilliant weekend. He won the sprint race by 4.8 seconds, and the feature race, he just blitzed the field.
How many times did that happen? Wasn't it only once last year there was someone won the feature sprint race?
Yes, so Bierman done it last year, and then the year before that was Drugovic. But apart from them two, because that's when I started watching Formula 2, but apart from them two, I'm not sure if that's ever happened before that.
Very rare.
Say like Leclerc in Bahrain in like 20. What was it? But that wasn't so much of a blitz. It was more just a dominant drive.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was when.
Will, what are you referring to? F1.
F2. When he came
after Leclerc.
No, Charles Leclerc.
Oh.
In 2017.
Must have been 2017 because it was the year before he went to Sauber.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 in Bahrain. He pit during a sprint race, which is really, really weird.
And then came back through the field. Yeah.
Came back through the field and won it. So,
that's more of a comeback.
Yeah, but Maloney absolutely flying this weekend. The Prema's nowhere to be seen. But really, it was a weekend where all of the former Formula 3 drivers done really well. I mean, in the feature race, 5 of the top 6 were Formula 3 graduates from last year. So it shows that the roster this year is going to be a lot tighter because not only are the experienced drivers falling back a bit, but the newer drivers also look really up for performing. They look really good, to be perfectly honest. I mean, Bortoletto unfortunately fell through the field on the feature race after starting pole on the Saturday. But overall, I think Maloney easily driver of the weekend. He just smashed everyone out the park. Really, really solid drive. Also want to give a shout out to Kush Miney. I mean, he got pole on the Friday, which was brilliant. A couple of hours later, his car was deemed illegal for the under tray being too low. Obviously, rules and regs of how high and low you can have your car.
Wasn't that the same thing that got Lewis and Leclerc done last year at Texas? So was it the under tray or was it the?
I think so. Yeah.
Barge board.
It might have been the barge board actually.
Same sort of reason though. It's to do with the ground effect, isn't it? Yeah.
But Yeah, so Miney got his pole taken away from him, putting him to the back of the grid. However, on Sunday, he went from 22nd, on Saturday, sorry, I'm going to keep doing that this episode. On Saturday, he went from 22nd to 7th in the feature race.
Yeah,
which is
cold drive.
Phenomenal. But yeah, overall, once again, I mean, the Formula 2 was the start of the feature race was fairly dull. There wasn't really much going on. And then your prediction for drivers' champion Will Victor Martins, I don't know if you saw, had a fault with his car, bringing out the safety car, and then it all just seemed to pop off. There was lots going on. It was just
look, Ollie. Championship ain't won on the first race, is it?
It isn't, but Zane Maloney is
a marathon, not a sprint.
Facts. even though we need to congratulate Max on winning the F1 already, but it is not a sprint. It is a marathon, like Ben says, and I still back him. I still think
Victor Martins.
Yeah, I still think he's got abundance of talent and the most experience. Still back him.
Very interesting. Well, Maloney was off to a flyer. We've got Formula 2 again this weekend in Saudi Arabia, which, I mean, it threw up fireworks last year with Ollie Beerman and Teo Pourchaire crashing into each other. So who knows? This year again, something massive could happen. On to the main event, the Formula 1.
Before we dive into that, me and Ollie, I believe we're expecting a formal apology from you, Mr. William Smith.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right. Okay. I will state my apology now, but I'd also like to point out that I technically wasn't wrong, and I said this to both of you. I wasn't wrong. So, if you'd have heard last week, I said that if Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz isn't on pole, I will say a formal apology, because I said after testing that the Ferrari will be on pole in Bahrain because of their testing laps. Now,
well, I'm still waiting for that apology.
On a I'll apologise now. Right, okay. As you all know, Max Verstappen got pole by a tenth or 2 tenths.
I will.
It was quite.
It was not as dominant as we've seen last season in qualifying, where it's like 3 to 7, but it was quite close. Now,
I think massively quicker than his pole time last year, though.
Yeah, it was, I want to say, a 129.3.
129.1 was Verstappen, 129.4 was Leclerc, 129.485 was Russell.
So it was a 129.1 for Verstappen in Q3.
And it was a 29.9, I think, last year. So that's our whole 8 tenths quicker.
29.7 last year. 29.7 last year.
6 tenths quicker than.
So, yes, Verstappen took pole by 3 tenths. Now, Ollie, can you read out Charles Leclerc's Q2 time, please?
129.165. Max Verstappen's Q3 time is a 121.179.
So that is 14
hundredths quicker.
14 hundredths quicker. So, on a technicality, the quickest time of qualifying was set by Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. It's not my fault.
Tell that to K-Mag in Brazil.
But between Q2 and Q3, he forgot how to drive. So that's all I'm saying. I'll hold my hands up now and I'll do my apology. But on a technicality,
we are still waiting for said apology.
I've just said I hold my hands up.
I want it formally. I want it directed at me and Ollie.
The words, "I am sorry, I got it wrong."
Ben and Ollie, I am deeply and severely sorry for doubting your utmost knowledge and wisdom in the Formula 1 world.
Thank you. I accept that apology.
But I wasn't wrong. So, that to be fair, that has covered qualifying, to be fair, quite well.
It wasn't great, was it?
It wasn't great. There were some moments.
It wasn't great, but I want to bring one thing up, and I'm sure at this point, Will, you were probably quivering in your boots. Because in Q2, I don't know if either of you saw, Lance Stroll went P2.
Yes, I did see that. I saw him cross the line and I said, oh no, this is going to be interesting on the pod. But, as always, Lance Stroll does what Lance Stroll does and, again, forgot to drive.
No, you know what? I'm going to go against your point. I think Lance Stroll had a very good weekend, right?
I think he did. I think he had a very good Sunday to recover from his start line. Not really a crash, but spin
Yeah.
to end up in the points.
Going from P20 and spun around to P10, you got to give credit where credit's due, Will. Come on.
Yeah, but it's because he's got an Aston Martin underneath him. Like,
Yeah, but I don't think that is as big of a compliment as it was last year.
no, that car's still quick. That car is still quick.
But then you
Yeah,
look,
but not as quick. I think
No,
maybe
not
it's
as
a
quick as
case
last
of maybe it's a case of it is still as quick as last year, but other teams have progressed even quicker,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah,
pushes them
probably.
back.
Yeah.
It's like I said.
It's quicker than the cars around it, so it could get it. So it should get in the points. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's like Alex Albon said on his media day that I did a TikTok on, that he thinks there's literally just a high midfield and a low midfield now,
Yeah.
and it looked that way with all 5 of the top teams in the points this weekend.
I think the high midfield is McLaren, Red Bull,
Well, we know what it is.
Ferrari, Mercedes, and Alonso.
Oh,
I saw a thing of that. I saw it as
That's
what was
genuinely
it?
my opinion.
I think it was
don't.
like F1 Hall of Fame, Red Bull, F1, and it was the
NASA.
yeah, F1 NASA was Red Bull, like half of the Red Bull sign. F1 was half of the other half of the Red Bull sign, obviously indicating Perez. Mercedes, Ferrari, and then half of Aston Martin. And then was it F1.2
Point
or
two.
1.5
Yeah.
was the other half of Aston Martin and McLaren. And then it went down, and then it was F2 was Alpine. Which, I mean, we've got to get on to Alpine. My God, how poor were they in qualifying?
Well, extremely poor. And I think I saw something. It was the first time that they'd both been the back markers since Azerbaijan. If it was last year, then it was last year. But if not, it was the year before that. So really, really on a downhill slope.
I mean, that's got to be their worst performance since, well, it must be Hungary and Silverstone last year, because that was double DNF, wasn't it? For both races, I think.
Yeah, it would
Well,
be.
to throw it even more in the mix, today, as of recording on the Monday, that Alpine's technical director, Matt Harmon, and the head of aerodynamics, Dirk de Beer, have also resigned. So they're in a little bit of a transitional period.
The big question is, what do you reckon all those celebrities that invested in Alpine are thinking?
Good point.
Who's invested? Zidane, Ryan
Zidane,
Reynolds, and Rob
Roy
McElhenney.
McIlroy,
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Trent, McIlroy, Zidane,
McIlroy, yeah.
Reynolds,
And he's
I feel like there's a basketball player in there, isn't there?
Rob
McElhenney.
Rob
I
McElhenney.
think his name
Yeah,
is.
Yeah, there's another one, I think.
there's quite a lot.
They're going to be worrying about their wallets, I think, if the way
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
continues
absolutely.
to perform.
It's ropes for them.
It's
ropes.
not looking good. I mean, the race wasn't really any better for them, was it?
It wasn't. But one thing I will actually give credit to one of the drivers is Esteban Ocon. At no point really in the weekend, from at least what was broadcasted, of course there may be more that if you do a deep dive you'll hear, he never really came across as angry at the team, more of we know we've got it wrong and let's work to fix it, which I think's good leadership.
Yeah, I think that's really what you want. I mean, I mean, especially from Ocon as well. We all know Ocon likes to run his mouth a bit, but I think him basically saying, "Oh yeah, we know where the car is. Like this is where it's going to be," just kind of shows that it's not looking good for Alpine over the next couple.
No, but all they need to really do is look at McLaren last year. That should give them confidence.
But do you think Alpine could get anywhere, not even anywhere close to McLaren? Obviously, I don't think so. But even come back from it, because I think that.
Well, I do, because a couple of years ago they finished fourth in the constructors, and I'm pretty sure there was the 2020 year, the year Ferrari were horrendous. They were battling for like P3, so they've got it in them. They can fight towards the top end of the field. I mean, even look last year, Gasly and Ocon both got podiums in the sprint race, and well, Gasly got one in the sprint race, and Ocon obviously in Monaco, and Gasly may have even got one in the main race. I'm not too sure, but they've got it in them. They can do it. They just need to be consistent. But at the minute, they just need to find a car that can actually do something.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think a complete reset, not even in terms of the technical direction and stuff like that, in terms of just Alpine in general. Just reset.
Mm,
Start again.
it's
Well, they had
really
this as
good.
well last year, didn't they? In like Spa, where
Yeah.
people. Well, it was Otmar Safner as well, wasn't it? He got released, but not until after a race weekend. So he was.
I thought
Everyone knew in the paddock he was gone, and it was just so bizarre, like to announce it
It
like
was
that.
announced he was leaving in Spa, but then he did the race weekend after as well.
No. Like
Oh
he
no, it
got
got announced
announced.
he was leaving for the Spa
Yeah,
weekend, but still did Spa.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, what's that? Which is,
Which is
Bizarre.
I don't
mental.
know, the past few years. I mean, they lost Piastri, they lost
By the way,
Alonso.
what a bullet he's dodged.
Yeah. Oh my God. Imagine if he stayed with Alpine. That would have been.
Anyone seen that clip as well of Stroll? And he's speaking to Alonso, and I apologise if I'm butchering this, either in Spanish or French Canadian. I don't know, but saying
It's like
along
the
the lines
Spanish.
of, "How happy are you that you're not at Alpine?" It's
I
either
have seen that. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know if it would have been this time last year because he got a podium, or if it was this weekend. I couldn't work out which one it was.
Mm. But I mean, Alpine, it just doesn't look good for them at all. I mean, with everyone leaving, with everyone that's previously left as well, it's just kind of put them in a position of vulnerability, I guess.
I
Like you
agree.
look at that team now, and they've lost some of their chief. So what were the
The technical director and head of aerodynamics gone today, as of recording, Monday the 4th of March.
That car is very much a bus, isn't it, when it comes to like aero? Like
Well, as I
looks
said
like
in
a
my
body.
predictions last week, the car doesn't excel, or has been reported it doesn't excel in any areas. So again, I'm kind of spot on with.
What, having a car that comes back as doesn't excel in any areas, driving a brick.
That's not great, is it?
Jesus. No.
It's not
No.
great. It almost reminds me of what Button and Alonso were driving McLaren Honda.
Oh God. Yeah, don't remind me of that. That
Those
was
weren't good days either.
no,
Not good. Not a good time to be an Alpine fan, I must say. But on the
no.
topic of like Alpine, well, it's not really on the topic. It's only because he's local to Enstone. But did anyone see Jeremy Clarkson waving the checker flag?
That was
Yes.
a very wholesome moment. I did
I
enjoy
agree.
Tell
that.
he's had a lot to drink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did. He did.
Brother is steaming.
but what that's the thing, right? So, right, think about it. How? Because Bahrain's obviously in that. I think is it a Muslim country? So alcohol free.
Yeah, but
Because
it
they
would have
spray
been.
rose water on the grid, don't
Who was
they?
he there with? Was he there with Aston
He's there
Martin?
with his wife. Oh, team wise, I'm
He
not
would have been
really
invited by a team. He would have been invited by a team.
Alpine, wouldn't it?
Well, I reckon it's kind of like when it was the Qatar World Cup. Everyone reports that there's no alcohol, but if you're in a certain position, then there will
Yeah,
be.
and also I think you might be right, Ollie, because they did the brand deal with them for Clarkson's farm.
Before we kind of break down the race event on the Saturday, I actually have come to my conclusion on this race weekend. So I wasn't happy with it, obviously, and I think it would be very easy to walk away from it going, we're going to have the exact same season we had last year. But I don't actually think that. I think 22 seconds win for Verstappen, I think that's quite flattering. Don't get me wrong, it's an unbelievable car, but I think too many surrounding challenges had too many problems and too many issues.
Well, did you see that apparently Red Bull are bringing in an upgrade that is going to take this car to the next level?
I know. What is that
Where
next level?
is
The
that
moon?
level? Mars?
Yeah.
What?
Right,
I think they're in
Where,
Japan,
where's
I think.
it going? Where can it possibly go? How
Oh,
can
no.
how can you turn around and look at a 22-second lead and go, yeah, we should have been quicker there?
Well, to be
No.
fair, I want to make a quick point. Everyone's going on about saying, "Oh, I can't believe Max has done this. Like, this is ridiculous that he's won by 22 seconds." I saw something on Twitter the other day, which is a very valid point. Bottas won by the same amount in Australia in 2019.
I saw that, but I'm not having it because
Why?
then after that there was different winners, and also as well
Yeah, but
that
it's still the
Bottas.
season opener. It's still the season opener with that big of a gap. I do see the comparison, to be fair. But then again, is that because we've been so used to Max doing this for the last 4 years? Not 4 years, 3 years.
But okay then, but fine. If Perez had won by 22 seconds this weekend, would you be saying the same thing?
Mm.
Probably.
I don't
Maybe.
think so. that graphic does not get pulled up of 2019 if Perez wins by 22 seconds this weekend.
True, probably not, to be fair, but
I
I
think
feel like
something
people
different.
have been saying it
There's
either
something
way because it's a
different.
Red Bull.
Well, listen, there's so much news surrounding Red Bull at the minute that I couldn't see them going in 23 more races the way that they went this weekend. No way in hell with all the talk and the surroundings of what's going on.
I think though, if Max continues performing like that, then there's no doubt he's going to be world champion again. And I mean, when you've
You have
watched
doubt now.
huh?
You have doubt now.
No, of course I don't
I
have.
was going to say, there's doubt. There's doubt in your mind.
No, but I mean, you never know. It's always going to be open. But watching the onboards from the race, I don't know if either of you saw any of Max's onboards specifically, but every single corner he went round, there never seemed to be a hint of oversteer. There never seemed to be a hint of understeer. He seemed to drive that car to perfection. I think, yes, you can say, okay, the Red Bull is brilliant, but you've got to give credit to Max as well because he's driven that car so well to get that 22-second gap. So,
Did you see his Sector 1 times from lap 17 to lap 57?
They were so consistent.
Yeah,
So
they were
consistent.
all 30.5s. All of them. Bar one or two that maybe went over. I think one of them was a 30.3 at some point. It was ridiculous.
Can I just say though, right, whilst on the topic of Red Bull, because there's no point hinting to what's all the inside stuff and then not bringing it up, but with obviously we spoke in the last episode, we gave our predictions, we said who we might fill in seats here, who might do this, who might do that, but there is talk, and quite high talk from several media outlets, that with the situation surrounding Red Bull and the hierarchy, the Austrian side and the Thai side, Verstappen could potentially be favourite to join George Russell at Mercedes for 2025. Now, that is massive. And Helmut Marko has even come out and said that we won't stand in his way.
Do we think that happens on it? No, I think the only person who stands in his way of doing that is Jos Verstappen.
But Jos Verstappen wants Christian Horner gone.
So are you saying if Christian Horner doesn't go, Jos Verstappen will say
Christian
to Max,
Horner
listen,
believes
this is a ticking time bomb?
Christian Horner wants to stay, right? He's made it very clear that he wants to stay. I believe people within the Red Bull organisation wanted him gone on the 2nd of February, and he got his lawyers involved.
yeah, I've seen something like that, but obviously we can't confirm.
We can't confirm or deny, no. But
Yeah,
I think when you see several media outlets reporting the same thing, or we didn't want to believe Hamilton to Ferrari, and look what happened. So this podcast, we're not giving our opinions. We're kind of just reporting what we're seeing. But yeah, there was also the fact that Ford are trying to pull out of the Red Bull deal.
The Trackside Pod would also like to mention we make no comment on the Christian Horner incident, and we imagine that the FIA will deal with it in due time, but we make no comment at this further time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Will.
Just a confirmation.
Just a confirmation. We have no comment on the matter, and we know that the FIA will handle it in the best possible way possible, and we will make comment on the further matter once a decision has been reached.
Fantastic.
There you go.
But there was an argument there was an argument as well reported in a Dutch newspaper that, and it was then confirmed by to the BBC that Jos Verstappen had an argument with Christian Horner this weekend. He did later apologise, Jos Verstappen, but of course that could probably happen every weekend, and it's just because there's so many eyes on Red Bull at the minute that it's reported on. But that's there. But Horner has said that he believes he'd still be able to, do what Red Bull are doing now without the likes of Newey, Verstappen. But I don't believe that for a second.
No, not a chance.
Really?
Red Bull, think of this. Red Bull have not been able to replace Daniel Ricciardo since Daniel Ricciardo left for Renault. You lose, Max Verstappen holds that team together. Max Verstappen is the man that kind of has a say in it all.
Adrian Newey and Max Verstappen in a Merc, and oh my God.
Well, no, you see, if I had to give a prediction, I don't think Verstappen would go to Mercedes, but if he did, I think Newey would go to Ferrari.
Yeah. But I just want to quickly say, I've seen reports of that as well. There was a report saying that Newey said something about Ferrari and saying that it could never. That's the thing. I think it's the same with any sport. Like any rumours across any sport, you can never say never of anything that's going to happen.
Nope.
And I think Formula One is one of the biggest advocates for that. I mean, you see changes happening all the time in everyone.
Yeah.
But
There's so much
quickly,
money in it as well.
yeah, 100%. But I want to just quickly come back to your point, Ben, about Red Bull not being as consistent with all the behind the scenes stuff going on. I think, okay, as a team they won't be, but I think Verstappen has his head so screwed on and he is so determined to win this championship that he's at a point now in his career when it's like I remember hearing and seeing this last year. It's almost reminiscent of Schumacher when he was winning pretty much every single week. Nothing will phase him. He's just thinking, I need to win. I need to win. He doesn't care about anything else. His mentality is just win, win, win. And I don't think any of the noise behind the scenes is going to change that.
No, I do somewhat agree, but I think my point more comes from the fact if he is able to pull a 20-second lead like this weekend, then no, I absolutely 100% agree with you. But I think if he was being challenged, I then think his head sort of switches there. I'm not going to say he's a professional athlete and he's media trained. He's trained in everything. But at the end of the day, something would flip. And I think as well, I think it was Mohammed Ben Salayim, who also, by the way, we'll get to him a bit later as well. But he asked Verstappen to publicly look out for Horner.
Yeah.
So whether or not Max Verstappen's even talking the way he wants to talk, he may be pressured by media and then he may snap. You don't know. You really don't. You have no idea. But one thing I will say is that the butterfly effects from all of this could be huge in the world of Formula One, both on and off track. And somehow we can probably link it all the way back to Alex Albon's appendix.
I saw that earlier. Well, one thing I do want to link it back to is, I mean, this is going back to F2 as well, but it's just reminded me it's a perfect kind of mixture. So Max Verstappen, Mercedes, and Kimi Antonelli, they all link together in some strange way. So the whole thing with, I think I showed this to both of you as well, the whole idea of Mercedes keeping that seat free for 2025 is for Kimi Antonelli, allegedly. Because back in 2014, a similar situation went on where Mercedes had the chance to offer Max Verstappen a seat in that Mercedes. However, at the time, they had Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. They then lost out on Verstappen. He went to Red Bull. And as I say, the rest is history. Now, Mercedes apparently on Toto doesn't want to take that risk again. So that's why they're keeping the seat open for Kimi Antonelli.
Have you seen the tweets, by the way?
Tweets of...
Someone's dug up tweets from between Verstappen and the Mercedes admin from 2016 about Verstappen joining, and then he posted a picture of Toto Wolff calling him. I thought it was meme accounts at first. I didn't realise it was real.
I did as well.
Do you think there's a chance that it's either going to be Antonelli, Max, or Sainz?
The fact that we're now including Max into this situation,
I know.
when literally a week ago we didn't even consider it, is
I know. This is why I love F1.
It shows why F1 is such an amazing sport. It can change pretty much instantly.
It's simple. We won't know until a decision is reached around Horner, around Christian Horner. If he's staying, it's very much likely on the cards. If he leaves, it's still very much likely on the cards.
I think the whole who's going to be in the Mercedes next year is going to be the biggest kept secret in Formula One. I mean, we didn't know about the Lewis Hamilton thing until the day that some reports came out, and then later on that day. I genuinely think with the Mercedes announcement of who is going to be their driver, the first time we hear of it will be from the official Mercedes account.
Well, Damon Hill made a really, really good point on Sky F1 this weekend, and he said that Toto Wolff is actually in a very privileged position because no one is going to... I know a lot of talk is that Lando Norris has gone early and that maybe McLaren knew of the Hamilton move, so they tied him down quite quickly, but no one is going to want to really be moving about until they find out what's happening with this Mercedes seat. Everyone's going to want it. So as soon as that second seat is announced, I reckon the repercussions from that will be huge. I think as soon as that's announced, you could probably already have 5 driver swaps the week after. It's everyone wants to wait until. So Toto Wolff, he's got so much time to play with. He probably could announce it until the second half of the season. It's however he wants to see the dynamic. Does he want George to get to know his new teammate earlier? I mean, there was obviously, you would have seen on the parade bus Hamilton and Leclerc talking to each other before. That's already got fans in, crazy minds of 1644.
At some point, by the way, they're going to have a crash this season, 100%.
100%.
Leclerc and Hamilton, 100%. It's written in the stars. Oh, they're teammates next year. That Ben's saying it's the best combinations in Senna and Prost. 100% they're going to come together at turn 1.
Which, by the way, done very well for views.
You're welcome, lads.
100% of turn 1. 100% of turn 1. Them two are going to have a smash.
Well, I think
it's going to be blown up. Will this create tension in the garage?
I said this to you, Will. I said this because of obviously the fact that this year was the first time the driver lineup's not changed. It could be very easy to look at it as but there's everything that happens this year plays out for how next year will go. So there's storylines every week. So I think this will be a great season.
I think we got to go back to that comparison of Senna and Prost and Leclerc and Hamilton. Say Verstappen does go to Mercedes, that partnership of George Russell and Max Verstappen, where do we throw that into the conversation?
Nowhere near. George hasn't got the bottle.
No.
George hasn't got the bottle.
I wouldn't say nowhere near, but I still put Leclerc and Hamilton above. I do, because you look at Leclerc, he's only had an extra year, and I know it was only the 1 year at Sauber, and Russell had, 2 or 3 at Williams? 19, 20, 21, 3 at Williams.
Yeah.
But, no, Leclerc for me, is a better driver than Russell at this moment.
But who's got better race pace?
George.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I said this pretty much halfway through. I think it was halfway through last season.
I'm glad you agree with me on it, because that's the answer I was kind of hoping for.
Leclerc does not have the credentials to be a world champion. He just doesn't.
Wow.
Okay, he's won lap race pace.
I fully agree.
He's won lap race pace. Don't get me wrong. As we said last week, probably the best on the grid.
Yeah.
But over a race, he can't keep
He can't get his elbows out.
No, I mean, how many times?
Not only that, he can't stay in the zone. He can't stay.
How many times did we see him lock up into turn 10 and into turn 1 and into turn 2?
Yeah, I think it was something like 4 or 5 times in the first couple of laps. But then, to be fair, he had brake issues.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of issues this weekend that we'll get onto.
God, we could probably
that. But
I
fully agree with you.
Mercedes, Williams, and Ferrari all had issues with their car.
I did see something though to do with Mercedes, and it always annoys me when it's bad. But it does annoy me when I remember something but can't accurately remember the information behind it. But something that Mercedes tested throughout the weekend, they then changed for the race day.
Vents on their engine cover.
Yeah, that's why they had the issues that they had.
So they didn't seal them.
I cursed that car. I cursed that car.
You did.
As soon as I made that TikTok saying I was hyped for it because they went top in FP2 or 1-2.
I think I cursed it. I said that Mercedes are going to be constructors champions.
Yeah, you're a mong.
But the thing is, I do find it very baffling, and who am I to question the Mercedes-AMG Petronas team with the record they've got. But I did find it very baffling that for the very first race of the season, they tried something that they've not even tested. Very bizarre.
Quickly to go over for the listeners that don't know what we're on about. Mercedes had vents on their air cover, which throughout practice and testing, I think it was, they had left open. And then for qualifying in the race, obviously going into Parc Fermé, you can't change anything. They then sealed those covers over, and during the race, it turned out that their engine was getting too hot.
Overheating.
I wonder why.
Yeah. It's very bizarre. Also, as well, another thing that I found quite interesting, I was going to say amusing, but I don't think that's the right terminology for it, is that Hamilton came out and he said that he's finally really happy with his positioning in the car. He didn't like it a lot last year, but it was too big of a thing to change. He really liked kind of his seating position, and then his seat went and broke in the race. I just I couldn't believe it.
It's kind of, it was kind of a Grand Prix where it felt like everything was breaking. I mean, the Ferrari versus Mercedes battle was just whose car isn't the most ill.
Yeah, it's so true.
The Ferrari, wasn't it? Leclerc's car his steering wheel was pulling to the right a bit, And then
Yeah.
obviously the Mercedes had the engine problems. Lewis had his problems with his seat. I mean, by the way, on the subject of speaking of Ferrari versus Mercedes, Carlos Sainz this weekend,
Unreal.
The villain
what
arc.
a performance! I mean, for me, it looked like he was
A
driving.
smooth operation.
It was a very smooth operation, but it looked like he was driving like he had a point to prove, almost as if like
Yeah,
I
the
should
point
be in
is
this seat.
I'm jobless in 2025. That's the
Well, no,
point.
I think it's totally different. I think it's kind of he's looking at Ferrari going, I deserve this seat. I mean, the battle between the Ferrari drivers, by the way,
So
wow,
good.
it was
So good.
probably the
So
most
good, but
exciting bit of the race.
so
Do
good,
you know
but
what got
kind
me
of
thinking as well?
unnecessary.
It's a bit of a difficult one maybe to answer. It's only I feel like you can only really answer it if you've got one in mind. But what's your favourite camera angle in F1? Because that into turn one in Bahrain, every time when you see the car shooting down and it's kind of the camera's pulled out to like the left hand side, it's unbelievable. I like Silverstone when they have it coming down the main straight and then swerved around. That's also quite like a good one. But that one in
Ooh.
Bahrain's
I
unbelievable.
think I think I'll follow on from your point. The shot just from coming out of Maggots and Beckett's, there's the camera that's always positioned under the bridge, which sees the cars come through Maggots and Beckett's.
Yeah,
Shot is phenomenal. Very very similar is the S's in Cota when there's the
yes,
camera at the end. That shot where they're coming through the S's there is phenomenal. Like
it's so good.
that shows the peak of vehicle engineering because you see the downforce, the suspension, how quickly the cars are going, and how the drivers can literally just flick it like
Well,
that at like 120 miles an hour or whatever it is, and
I,
the cars just don't fall.
He's got his hand up.
Phenomenal.
I think I've won. I think I've won, but it's only when there's a race restart or like under a safety car and we go green. It's the camera angle that goes down the straight at Monza, and you see the entire train of cars weaving as they all get in each other's slipstream.
Oh yeah, all right, that's
Whenever
I-
I think of safety car restarts, I just think of that meme of that guy being in handcuffs and then he runs away from the police.
well, that's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
literally
always
what
captioned.
happened this weekend, wasn't
It's
it?
literally captioned Max
Yeah.
Verstappen. It
I
makes
mean,
me laugh all the time.
I mean, I know we've talked about Max a lot this episode. I mean, we have to. It was a phenomenal drive, but how was it? 4.8 seconds by the 10th lap. I think it was. It was his lead.
It was inside 6, I think.
It was just.
You can't win.
He's just on another planet.
I know.
Like he's gonna break all. As we said last week, he's gonna break all the records. I know you don't want to hear it, Ben, but it's inevitable.
What records does he have to break though?
Because
Well, we're talking
what was it? What was it this weekend that he matched? Wasn't it? He matched.
Schumacher for
No, it was Prost and someone else
you're on
for
a different one. Then.
poles. I
Oh
want to say
no,
Jim Clark.
it's only him and Schumacher that have done a clean sweep on the first race of the season. So
Ah.
pole, fastest lap, winning the race, never leading every lap. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Clark
I mean,
and Alan
really-
Prost.
The only records he's still got to break is win every race of a season and on the podium every race of a season.
Well, no, like obviously, I think what Ollie was referring to is breaking Hamilton's most wins, most championships type
Well,
records.
Yeah, that as well. But in terms,
Because he's less than
he can't do
halfway
that
there.
this year. He can't do that this year.
No,
But
but
I mean,
he's.
this year, what more can he do?
But how fun! Imagine if he did go to Mercedes and then all of a sudden he's not in a winning car and you've got like 8 drivers all gunning for it. That would be incredible.
That was the whole thing with. I remember when George went to Mercedes, it was the whole thing of, oh my God, this is going to be phenomenal. Mercedes is going to build such a brilliant car. George deserved this opportunity. And then going into the 2022 season, we know how bad that Mercedes was.
I know.
So
I mean, they
fun.
just got it totally wrong.
There is one point as well I just wanted to bring up on the Verstappen thing because, and I imagine we'll leave it, but there apparently, quote unquote, is an exit clause as well in his contract allowing him to basically leave Red Bull whenever he wants. It's not like he has to see out X amount of seasons. He could just literally hang his racing boots up and he's gone.
He doesn't want to carry on though for long, does he? He's
No.
only
He
wants
does
to
say
stay
this.
till 2030.
He does say this, but
2021.
I can't imagine him. Listen, if you were guaranteed a season that he's basically had since 2022, you'd be a fool to give it up because you're basically. I'm sorry to say it, but you're breaking records without really any without a challenge. Like you can't downplay what he's doing. It's unbelievable, but he's not really being fought ever. You know, he's not been fought for 2022 and 2023. Probably by the look, if we went off one race, he's not going to be challenged this year. And then all of a sudden, he's a 4-time world champion. He'll have like 60, 70 race wins.
But then does that prove how good he is? That he's, because obviously we can sit here and say, oh yeah, it's the car that's giving him this massive advantage, and obviously it can look that way.
Oh no,
But
because you look at
Perez
Perez.
is excelling.
No, exactly.
You kind of have to.
There is
Perez doesn't have the
absolutely.
same car. We know this. Perez does not have the same car. We know
No,
this.
I do agree.
Perez is
You
one
can't.
of the RBs.
You can't. You from a journalism point of view, you can't downplay what he's doing just because he's maybe not your favourite driver. Like, no, he's unbelievable. He's going to go down in history as one of the greats of all time, and in this era of Formula One, probably the best from the 2020 these regulations 2022 to 2025. But I still just want to see him challenge. We've seen what happens when he has a challenge with someone like Lewis. He goes crazy. He's all of a sudden doing things that are just what's the word?
Conventional.
Yeah. So, but then when it's any other driver, but when it's anyone else, it's, I don't know. It's just, it seems like, oh, don't worry if I don't get him into this corner because I'll obviously get him at the next one. But when it was Lewis, it was, no, I have to be leading at this corner. He's not allowed to lead at this. And maybe there could be that with another driver, but we just haven't yet to seen it. So that's why I can only say him and Lewis.
We thought
when
we
he had
were
the battle with Leclerc in 2022.
Yeah,
it wasn't even a
about
battle.
to say. We had that with Leclerc, but they were so soft.
Hmm.
They were like,
I just think back to Austria. It was so soft. It was just like, yeah, it weren't great.
I will always say this: Leclerc doesn't have the credentials to be world champion because he's not aggressive enough.
No,
he's not aggressive
He's
enough.
not quick enough.
He can fly around the track when he's unchallenged and he's got all the time in the world, but when he has to go into a fight with someone, he can't do it. He doesn't get his elbows out enough.
But I will stick to my point of what I said last week. I honestly don't think Red Bull can go a whole year without, or Verstappen can go a whole year without either, a problem with his car or a crash.
Yeah, but even when he spun in Hungary, he just did a 360 in one.
But I just think
it seems like the man is impossible to break.
No,
I think unless the Red Bull has mechanical issues, which, I mean, we look at the reliability last year, they probably won't. I mean, we say that, but you kind of, it's luck on both ends of the spectrum, because it's luck as in he's been lucky not to have any mechanicals, but then you have to be unlucky to have mechanicals. It's... But
something is definitely coming Red Bull's way. There's too much attention on them for it to just be smooth sailing on track. I do get your point, Ollie, of like, there was this weekend and he's still dominant and his mindset's on racing. I 100% agree with you, but we've had one race weekend. More has come out since that race weekend. It will go into next race weekend. It will then continue to the point where he turns around and just has had enough of it. And he either says that to the media and snaps, or he says that behind the scenes and snaps. One thing I also do want to just say, and Will made a great point where we didn't really want to go into detail, and we're not going to go into detail, but we also do remember that at the end of the day, even though this saga may or may not be great for racing, that the reality of the reason it's here in the first place is that it shouldn't be, and it's, and obviously wait until whatever the final outcome be, but that we remember that there's obviously feelings involved in this, and it's not all just about racing, obviously.
I think whether or not, whatever the outcome is, that's a better way of putting it, actually. Whatever the outcome is of the verdict from the FIA and Red Bull and everyone else who's investigating it now, because it seems that all their sponsorships as well are even planning on backing out. I think Horner should just resign no matter what, no matter what the outcome is, just because it's now getting to the point where it's now the whole talking point of really every. I mean, there isn't an interview that goes by where you don't mention that situation, and you are right when it will have an effect on both Perez and Max to the point where one of them will snap either in the media or, like you said, behind the back. So no matter the outcome, I think he should just resign.
Well, there's always two sides to every story, isn't there? So, and we've said a million times we won't dive into it, but the reality is he was cleared. He was cleared of all charges against him or whatever it may be, by an external barrister. And then it was these WhatsApp files that were leaked to members of the paddock, the press, the hierarchy, Stefano Domenicali, and all that. And it's now whether a case of someone's is clearly as out to get him, and it's either rightly so or wrongly so. That's what needs to be, discovered. It's either all true, and if that's the case, he needs to be gone, and he needs to be told he's gone, not him step down. He needs to be sacked for that, or someone's out to get him, spreading false, whatever. And if that's the case, then that's wrong. But that's not for us to find that out. That's for those above and those in the hierarchy to find that out.
Surely
there is clearly friction within the Red Bull organisation. Yeah. There's no denying that. There is clearly ongoing.
Surely, though, a decision has to be made soon. Like this.
I agree. It's a bad look for Formula 1.
How long are they going to let this carry on for?
No, I agree. Toto Wolff said the same thing.
You can't let this go on the entire season, whether that's the FIA or Red Bull themselves. You can't let this go on the entire season. Otherwise, we're just going to have this hanging over the sport.
And it's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And also, but I did find it quite. I don't really know what the right phrase or words to use are, but
what are you trying to say?
Well, obviously, Jerry Horner, his wife, was at the race this weekend, and it was just.
Yeah, you got to feel for her, because then all of a sudden the media's surrounding him and her walking into the paddock.
Yeah, but it did feel like the whole holding hands thing and the smiling. It really did feel forced.
Well, I saw a few tweets of actual journalists that were at the race weekend. They said in the paddock it seemed like they were strategically positioning themselves. Obviously, 100%. We don't know if that's true or not, but it kind of felt like they were trying to show everything's okay.
I agree with you, Ollie, because there were so many.
We never know.
There were so many times like sticking hand out to hold hands and sitting in positions where you can be seen by cameras, and it did just feel wrong. But yeah, we've said it 100 times. Until there's a decision, we'll just talk about what the evidence is already out and take it from there. Don't really want to give opinions on the matter, more just spread the story. But going into Saudi Arabia this weekend, I imagine Red Bull quite literally have to do their talking on the track, and that's obviously down to Verstappen.
How many questions do you think on the media day on Wednesday? Seriously, give me an actual number. How many questions do you think Max Verstappen or Perez are asked about the entire situation? I'm going to go at least 3.
Well, no, I'd say so many more, because it will be the same questions, just rearranged by every media outlet.
All across the world as well. It's not just going to be Sky.
No,
it's going to be every single journalist, like Dutch TV, Mexican TV.
Well, Dutch TV seems to be the ones getting all the scoops. It's Jos Verstappen. Jos Verstappen. He goes. I can't remember what they're called.
He's turning around and telling everyone about it, because if anything, I don't think he's out for Horner. I just think that he wants what's best for his lad, and that he knows right now that is.
But as long as it's Max Verstappen making his career decisions, it's not Jos's decisions to make.
No, it's not.
It's Max's.
No, but I do think Jos is also the main driving point, that if Horner is going to leave because of the friction, it will be because of Jos coming around.
There's rumours as well that Horner and Helmut Marko have fallen out. Obviously, the 51% Thai owners were at Bahrain this weekend, but 49% Austrian owners weren't there. So whether or not there's solidarity there, and you can't really. That's the great thing about the media speculation is you can choose to dive and look in something to make a story, or you can try to be a human and wait until things play out. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think this weekend there's going to be so much attention on it all. Just have to wait and see.
I genuinely couldn't tell you like what the outcome's going to be, and then what happens.
Every time I go onto Twitter, every time I go to refresh, there's some big story. Like, might as well, whilst we're on topic of big stories.
I'll have a look right now.
There will be something.
The FIA president, Mohammed Ben Salim, is currently under investigation. And if you want to give our Instagram a follow, Trackside Pod F1, then I did put out the statement, which I will read to you, because it's only right that I do so. And this came out literally, I'd say about half an hour before we started recording, just proving that anything can happen at any moment.
Sorry,
Um,
sorry, can I just interrupt you?
Go
Matt
on.
Gallagher has just tweeted saying Netflix are going to have
Oh, I've
10
seen that.
episodes recorded of Drive to Survive before round 2.
Yeah. So the president of the FIA is currently being investigated for allegedly trying to tamper with the race outcome. The FIA have been informed by a whistleblower that Ben Sulayem reportedly interfered to overturn Fernando Alonso's punishment at the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for Aston Martin. The whistleblower claims that he was in Saudi Arabia for the race in an official capacity, as in Ben Sulayem was for an official capacity, and he called the FIA's vice president of the sport of the Middle East and North African region and expressed his opinion that Alonso's penalty ought to be overturned, and he's not yet commented on this. Now, that's obviously huge, and that would go onto a list of things that, since being in charge, he's not done great. He took a step back. If I remember correctly, I was reading BBC Sports article earlier on about the investigation to it, because it's BBC Sport. And by the way, I've got to give a massive shout out to Andrew Benson, because he's fantastic for Formula One. He's their chief Formula One writer. But since he's obviously been in charge, he stated over the winter of 2022-23 that he was going to take a step back from direct involvement in F1, saying it had been his stated objective to be a non-executive president. But controversies included weren't limited to blocking for 6 months an agreement between teams and commercial rights holders to double the number of sprint weekends for 2023, receiving a cease and desist letter from F1's lawyers following his reaction on social media to a story claiming Saudi Arabia's public investment fund had tried to buy the sport for $20 billion, and the emergence of a historical website that quoted him making misogynistic remarks. So there's already, since he replaced Michael Massey, there's already been so much. Now there's this as well. I don't really know how much longer it can go on for.
And to sum this up for people who don't really understand the not even technology, the terminology behind F1, it is basically blatant match fixing of certain ways, and also a very outspoken and corrupt head of governing body that really does tarnish the look of the sport. And it is this could potentially be this is blatant match fixing of this is something that we haven't seen this since Crashgate.
Well, someone did say, not in quote unquote, bit weird, Alonso involved in hierarchy again.
Yeah,
Where have I seen that before?
yeah, it is. We haven't seen this since Crashgate, and we all know how that looked. The sport was tarnished for ages because of that. And do we want this? The sport, right? Let's be honest. The sport's already under threat because of how dull the last 2 years have been. And if this comes out now, it will just throw a massive. It just make the sport like an utter mockery. We've already had it last year with the shambles that happened at Azerbaijan with the pit lane incident and other stuff that's happened off the track. Like, it'll just be shocking.
Unfortunately,
the fact that we've had one round of this championship and we've got more to talk about that going on behind the scenes than actually on track shows you that this sport is seriously going in the wrong direction.
It is, I agree with you. And I think, unfortunately, the stereotype of Formula One is for the rich is still there. You know,
and the thing is that it shouldn't be. It should.
I agree.
Formula One is now starting to follow down the path of what football has become the last couple of decades. It has become for the rich and the powerful and corrupt, and that is the one thing we always said about Formula One. That was never the case, but because of what's happening now, and because of since 2021, we all. I won't even go into it, Ben, because I know you'll have a paddy. But since 2021, corruption and greed and power has always been on the top of people's minds because of what's happened. And this really does put the final nail in the coffin of us trying to defend this sport in terms of entertainment, corruption.
To be true, of course.
Yeah, if it is to be true. But if the BBC report it, mate, it's one of those things where it's...
Well, yeah, we do have to make sure we remain
I
But
think
And
I
that's,
know,
that's what I mean.
I do agree with
We've
you.
already said in terms of the whole Christian Horner thing, we've already said we don't speak on it because there's a lot of niche journalists that aren't exactly high up turning around and saying all this stuff, and we're just kind of like, hold on, are you
well,
just jumping on?
there'll be people similar levels to us speaking about it,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like,
Are you just jumping on a bandwagon, or are you actually being serious?
yeah,
But when it comes to this, for the BBC to turn around and report it, now we're not saying that this is true or anything like that, but this is obviously, it just shows it's a bigger deal. Like, it is huge, and that's how huge it is. Because I don't think even like that's the first I've seen of it on the BBC. Ben, I didn't even
Well, they
see
broke the story. Yeah,
yeah,
they broke the
for the
story.
BBC to break the story, sorry, and not even any of these niche journalists do. Because the same with the Horner thing, that was all broken by niche journalists first before any Sky or BBC got onto it.
Well, what I'd love to know as well is that has this kind of been gatekept information for a while now? Have they purposely waited for this year's rendition of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix so they can tarnish this race weekend? Who knows? Because obviously,
because
remember what we
Saudi
had this
Arabia's,
time last year with
Armco
um,
thing.
the Armco issues, and now yet again we're going to another Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with more
But this,
off
like I said,
track
this
matters.
just
It's just so not. It's just
it
not a
just
good
adds
look.
on top of everything that's happened already this year, and it really is making a mockery and tarnishing the sport. Like we love F1, that's the thing, and we tell people come to us all the time going, "Oh, how do you enjoy F1?" It's just the same people going around. So you say, "No, you don't understand the thrill of it," and we know full well, and anyone watching this will know full well who likes F1. The way to tell if someone understands F1 or not is if they say they don't like it. The only reason why you don't like it is because you don't understand motor racing and the tech and
I agree.
how talented you need to be to actually go motor racing. I've done it, but I could not turn around and go, "Oh, put me in an F1 car, I'll win everything." Not a chance. And that is genuinely the truth. The only way, and we always say to people, just sit down, watch F1 and you understand it. But we can't when this is making a mockery of the sport because no one's going to want to watch this.
No.
No one's
No.
going to want to watch it.
I think one key point as well, going back to the whole greed and money thing. I think I remember making this point last year. For the same price or cheaper than getting tickets for the Silverstone weekend, the whole package, you could buy. It's motorsport as well. Obviously, it's not the same level. You could buy a ticket for every single race of the IndyCar season for the price of one weekend package at Silverstone.
You could also buy yourself
That's
a seat in the
crazy.
BTCC if you had enough license points, which is mental. Because
It's
that's the highest pecking order of British racing, bar like Formula One when it comes to town. But that is stupid.
it's ridiculous. The amount
It's
of money that's involved and everything that's going on. It's just
but obviously, and we're not what we're saying is we're not saying the money needs to be stripped from Formula One. No, of course it doesn't. That's the only way the sport's going to grow. That's the only way it's going to get bigger. That's the only way the sponsorship and the advertisement
It's
is
the
going to come
people
in. It's
making
going
the
to be good.
decisions.
But it's the people who make the decisions, like you said, that have the power with that money that are potentially going to ruin the sport we love. And as shocking as that is to say, it is going to become a major talking point at some point. And there's a lot of things that need to be addressed and sorted within the next week. If this story is true, it needs to be sorted by the time the pit lane
Well,
light
no,
goes
it said
green.
it apparently I did read something that said it will take 4 to 6 weeks to be
Mental.
looked at by
Mental.
officials away. So that's one thing with Formula One that I hate is how long things take to
Yeah.
to be finalised. Whether it be a team appealing something and it's you have to go into like the next race weekend to find if results are being moved. A bit like an F2 Ollie with Kushmani where he's on pole and he gets to celebrate and then he's disqualified however many hours later. It's just it does suck a bit. In football, for example, you don't finish a game, it's finished 3-0 and then all of a sudden 2 hours later, it turns out it wasn't, it was 3-1. Do you know what I'm going back to the race? Did anyone see Perez's race engineer Hugh Bird having to change his radio?
yes, I did hear it because he was trying to mind your camera, Will.
Yeah,
He
I'm
was
just
trying
back
to
to
wasn't he
stuff.
trying to communicate? Yeah, they were having issues communicating, weren't they? And
Yeah.
Perez came over the radio, and you could even on comms on Sky F1's broadcast, you could hardly even hear it. So, yeah, interesting. I mean,
That was a new one for me though. I didn't even know you could change radios.
yeah, because as they said on the broadcast, it looked like I always thought they were built into the pit wall. I
Yeah.
always thought that's how the broadcasts were, but clearly not. There was a lady, I think it was a lady that came along, was holding a radio in her hand, just gave it to Hugh Bird. It was like, oh, right, that's.
Yeah. I
But
know. I hadn't seen that before either.
I mean, last thing. So I was just thinking the other day, right? So in terms of radio messages, the they're not on all the time, are they? Drivers have to press the button to
Yeah,
speak to their engineer.
you have to press the button to actually speak to an engineer.
And what I find interesting is the fact of when drivers crash or do something wrong, why do they come over the radio, press the button to come over the radio, and scream and shout about it? So, like Logan Sargent this weekend, he looked up going into turn 4, went off the track, and he came on and he was just screaming. And it's like, you're the one that made the error. Why are you turning on your comms to then scream like a child and then just get back on with racing? I mean, to be honest, when that situation happened, I thought he's had a mechanical. There could be a yellow flag here. There could be a safety car. I was really excited. And then obviously he got back going. But it was kind of like, what? I don't understand why drivers do that.
Honestly,
No, I know.
adrenaline.
Did you know though? Sorry to interrupt you there, Will, but did you actually know that? I agree with you, Ollie. I thought he was also gonna retire. I thought he was out, but he continued, and he obviously came last. But that's the first time, also in the history, that every driver finished the first race of the season. And I saw again Damon Hill tweet it saying, "Yeah, but that's not a good thing."
No, but I think one thing that's interesting is there were so many car problems which just magically fixed themselves, or didn't fix themselves, but the cars were still able to run. I mean, the one thing that I did find absolutely hilarious. So obviously we've spoken about Mercedes with their problems, Ferrari we've spoken about their braking problems, and Charles's right hand down thing on his steering wheel. But I think the funniest one overall, and obviously we had the Bottas situation in the pits, which second longest pit stop of all time that's been timed or whatever.
52.4
just
seconds.
like one like a day.
It's like
Yeah,
three.
it didn't get.
One-
Had to take it all the way back to the factory in
hours.
Brackley.
Yeah, they had to go all the way back.
They had to break the wheel off, didn't they? I'm pretty sure.
They had to saw it off. They had to go a little lapse of run and saw it off.
Some could say that they made a mistake.
And that's where we're going to end the podcast for this week. Thank you for listening.
I thought that was quite good.
But yeah, going back to car issues, I'll wait for Will to wake up. Did you see what came up on, I think it was Sargent's or Albon's dash during
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Screenshot of this is hilarious.
That was phenomenal. The fact that it came up saying too hot.
Brilliant.
Like, this is the peak of motorsport and peak of engineering, and it just comes up saying car too hot. Nothing else, just car too hot was. I mean, I didn't see it until after the race, but that did make me chuckle. That was
Quality.
that was a moment.
A bit like when the old Alpha Tauri just taped Tsunoda's rear wing in Azerbaijan. Peak of engineering, peak of Formula One, and they just got a bit of duct tape out.
Bit of duct tape.
Well, going back to Lewis going to Ferrari next year in Hammer Time. Have you seen? I think it's the Australian stock car racing when I think there's one of the cars has the bonnet that's like broken, and the engineers just come over with hammers, just whack the bonnet down.
Punching it with his wrist.
That is going to be the Ferrari engineers.
Back in.
Lewis's wristband next year.
There's a
When
nose cone broken or something like that, and the mechanics of the Red Bull guys just start swinging at it. It'd be brilliant. I'll pay good money to see that. That'd make the sport interesting.
talking of Red Bull and swinging, Tsunoda and Danny Rick, that was heated towards the end.
Right transition.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to each get your individual opinions. I'll go Will first and then Ben, but I have an opinion on it and I want to see if it's valid or not, but I'll let you two speak first. So Will, go on, give us your opinion.
Okay, so I actually understand Yuki's frustration because what they should have done is if Danny Rick couldn't chase him down, they should have inverted it back. But they didn't, so I understand that. Because Danny Rick went in front of him, yes, looked quicker, but then made no indent at all and was just kind of punching a hole in the air and was doing nothing. And then Yuki wasn't like falling back from Ricciardo either. He was staying consistently behind him. So what they should have done is, were both out the points as well?
Yeah, 13th
Yeah,
and
they should have
14th
just
they
they
were
should have
running.
just inverted they should have just inverted the positions back then, just because it wouldn't have meant anything. And I know what you could say, why would they invert if they weren't in the points, but in terms of head to head, it's quite important because technically now, if you look on the stats of the head to head, that now makes Ricciardo look better, even though Sonoda was the better driver all weekend.
Mm.
Um, qualifying and everything like that. Uh, but I completely fully agree with Yuki's frustration. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's the nicest little man out the car, but in the car, he does have short, angry man syndrome, doesn't he? Like he
He
is.
does.
Well, you get it sometimes, don't you?
We'll end the podcast for today.
No, my
He
take
gets
on it
found
is
out.
that is very much that he has every right to be annoyed at it because they're not even fighting for points. It was fighting for 12th place. Of course, I know at the end of the year, let's say RB and As finish on the same points, it then comes down to position. Da, 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 da. But I also think that Yuki's attitude is what is going to cost him in the long run. He will not end up in that Red Bull seat because his attitude is just not right. And what he did at the end in the in-lap where he locked up and then very nearly smashed into the side of Ricardo, it's just not necessary on any level. And Ricardo even came out after, and fair play to Ricardo. I know he's got a lot more experience, but he said, we'll talk about it inside, but he did say very immature of him. And it will be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out, I think,
Yeah,
for the rest of the season.
obviously I'm not going to repeat the exact words used, but I quite liked his insult of Yuki, calling him an effing helmet, which
Yeah, such an Australian insult.
such an Australian. It did make me
Such an
chuckle a little
Australian
bit.
insult.
But
Being the helmet.
my view on it is I don't understand why they made the decision in the first place. Obviously, I get it because Ricardo was on softs, Yuki was on hards, but Yuki was only zero point 0.8 behind Magnussen, who wasn't in the DRS of anybody in front of him. Yuki was doing a good job. They inverted the cars, and Daniel didn't do a better job and didn't get anywhere closer.
No.
And at the same time, Max was chasing them and going to put a gap in between them anyway. So it's just like when
So
you've
you,
got a
you
driver
agree with
that's
me? You agree with me then that I can
yeah,
understand his
I can
frustration.
understand his
You think they
frustration.
should have swapped back as well, even though it weren't for points?
I
Because I
mean,
just think because of the head to head.
yeah, I get that, but I mean that
As a
bit.
now, hold on, Ollie. As a man who was very much against Ricardo's move back into Formula One anyway, you should agree with me here that they should have swapped back because that head to head just makes Ricardo look better.
Ricardo did say though after the race, he said it's almost coming across as though we didn't discuss this beforehand. Like to say that this was always going to be the case. I was always going to be on the quicker strategy, or if certain ways played out. So this was what was agreed on. So whether or not there was more to it, we don't know.
Surely they would have been like, yeah, all right. If Sonoda, if Ricardo doesn't catch, was it Magnussen?
Yeah,
Yeah, if Ricardo doesn't catch Magnussen, you just swap it back, and Yuki can have the head to head back. I know head to head with no points probably aren't important, but for teams they actually are because it
yeah.
shows what drivers outperform in the other. And now Max has already won that up this year when he doesn't really deserve to be.
Max.
Not Max. Ricardo, sorry.
You say Max is probably the most deserved driver of being 1-0 up on his teammate.
Yeah, because Perez is right. Never mind.
Well, actually, Will, no, we should say P5 to P2 is a good job.
Yes, but he was still 22 seconds behind the man in the same piece of car.
But he started five places back, so
But he's still driving the same car.
he had to do more overtakes.
He's still in the same car. It's not. If anything, he should have been qualified. The only impressive thing about that is he went from P5 to P2, but he should be qualifying P2 anyway. The only reason why he didn't is because he generally isn't good enough to be in that Red Bull.
Interesting stat, which they said on the broadcast. That is, I think they said that's the first time that Checo has been in the top two since Monza last year.
It's the first time he's made Q3 in a while, isn't it? As well.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. That's
like
mental. First time in the top two since Monza.
Do you want to play a quick game?
Go on.
So that win for Red Bull took them on to fourth all-time constructors wins. Can you guess the order?
Yes.
From one to joint fourth.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ollie, you go first.
Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull.
Incorrect.
Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Williams, Red Bull. But Williams and Red Bull are
Correct.
tied.
Uh-huh.
Do you know how many race wins they all have, or do you want me to just tell you?
I can take a guess.
Okay, how many do you think Red Bull have got now?
Red Bull are on 114.
Correct, shared with Williams.
Ferrari are on 257.
243.
243. Okay. Mercedes are on 189.
No, 125.
125. Someone's on 18 something, aren't they? Or high end of 100.
McLaren are 18 something.
They're 187.
183. But that just
That is knowledge, William.
I'll take that. No, I saw the graphic yesterday.
Oh. Calculating in your head every single Mercedes race win you had just calculated.
No, I saw the graphic yesterday that Ben was on about. That's why I was so confident with yes. I was
Do
like, yeah.
you find that mental though that Red Bull are only 9 wins off overtaking Mercedes? Mercedes had 8 years of dominance. Red Bull had the first 4 years from 2010, and now we're looking at 3. Okay, 7.
But
if you put it into consideration,
the reason
maybe
why they run
Mercedes...
as many constructors as they did is because they would have the cars constantly on the podiums. Whereas the thing is, though, the reason why they don't have many race wins is because from 2017 to 2019, Ferrari and Mercedes were battling and stuff like that. So Seb was winning a lot of races as well. So if you'd have had the domination that you had in 2020 throughout those years as well. That's why I always hate when people are like, oh, you had the Mercedes dominant. No, you didn't.
Talking of Seb, have you seen that Toto might bring him back and get him in the Mercedes? There's been some rumours floating about saying Seb could go to Mercedes.
Audi.
But then that just defeats his whole point of wanting to not make the same mistake of missing out on a rising junior.
He's coming back. He's coming back to Audi. Let's be honest. We know it's happening.
Oh, what? What do you reckon? A sign?
Vettel.
That would be unreal. For a first year in the sport, a Sainz and Vettel partnership would be brilliant.
People need to let this Vettel thing go. He's hung his boots up. He's not doing an Alonso.
No,
he's not coming back.
If you honestly think that when that Audi driving a lineup is announced, if you're telling me you do not think they're going to have Seb Vettel in it, you are off your rocker.
How old will he be then?
Hold on, we'll get it up.
In 2026, how old would he be?
Well, talking of older drivers, while Will gets this up, talking of older drivers, have you seen that apparently there are rumours floating around, or not rumours floating around, people are saying, could you imagine if Max goes to Mercedes, Alonso goes to Red Bull, and he wins a championship at 43 years old?
In 2026, he'll be 38.
Oh. What?
I thought he was older than that.
36 currently.
Wow.
Looks good for a 36-year-old.
Wow, that does actually take me by surprise. Does take me by surprise indeed. But really, I think
Who's Mrs.?
if unless anyone else has anything else to say on the race, does anyone want to?
Yeah, I was thinking, is there anything else that we actually need to talk about?
I was just going to say, does anyone want to have a quick preview for Saudi?
Or, right, I want to do one thing first. I want to make this a thing every week. I talked about it in the F2. I want, every week going forward, your driver of the week.
Okay.
Go. William, take the stage.
I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I'll just tell you who I vote for on the driver vote, and that was Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I think Carlos Sainz. I think that Max was brilliant this weekend. I thought Perez.
Did you vote for him, Will?
No.
Oh, did you not do the vote?
No, I was at work.
Oh, fair enough.
I do apologise.
I also voted for Carlos Sainz Jr. So I think he's done a brilliant performance in that Ferrari. I mean, it kind of just seemed like he had a bit between his teeth, and he just was driving with pure aggression and not aggression, but he was racing with purpose. He wasn't racing just to be like, okay, I'm going to manage myself and get in these positions and make sure that I'm keeping the car on track. It was like, you know what, I'm actually going to fight for this. And that's what I love. It's brilliant.
Can we have everyone's biggest disappointment of the week, driver disappointment of the weekend?
Oof.
Well, probably, I know he did have issues, right? But probably Leclerc.
Hamilton.
Ooh, I
Simple as.
can. Yeah. Well,
You,
you
your
compare him to
team,
what George
your
done, and
team,
Lewis was nowhere
yeah,
He's
near.
very
your
unserious
teammates,
this weekend, though.
your teammates up in fourth, and you're scrapping bottom 10.
Well, your teammate qualified third, and you qualified ninth.
Yep.
I think he said though that they swapped the setups and got it wrong, but I think he'll be fine this
When
weekend.
when don't when is that? When isn't that the excuse though? Oh, we got.
No, I know. I said this. What did I say last week though? I said I never take a season serious until the second race is done. Anyway, they've had 2 weeks in Bahrain. This is really the first race of the season from
Yeah.
my point of view.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I also agree with you as well. But then again, this season's already up in the air because of what's been going on. So
Well, does anyone want to give predictions going into Saudi? Then what do we think we'll be talking about this time next week?
Horner getting sacked.
You reckon?
Yeah. Horner getting sacked and that other bloke getting found guilty.
The other bloke? You mean the FIA president?
Yeah.
Has it been Salaya?
No, like I said, that's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. Will.
Well,
It's
okay.
whether or not he
I think
like
Horner
accepts to comment. Whether or not he comments may be what you're referring to.
Yeah,
He may
I
come
think
out
Horner,
and
I think
he
Horner
doesn't.
loses his job though, or doesn't lose his job but resigns. I think Horner resigns.
Wow. On the track, anything different on the track?
No, I think
There's
business
gonna
as usual. Business as
be
usual.
as usual. I'm gonna go. I know I say this pretty much every week. I'm gonna go Albon P8 in the race. I think we know what the Williams are like in a straight line. This is a heavily based, fast circuit. There's a lot of straights, a lot of DRS. Williams, Alex Albon P8 is going to be my prediction for the race.
My prediction is Carlos Sainz will be on the top step of the podium.
Carlos
Oh.
Sainz.
I'm seriously not convinced that this is a Max Verstappen dominant year. I think he will win the championship, but I don't think he wins 19 races.
I did say in my prediction
I
that I
don't.
think it's a Carlos Sainz or Leclerc battle versus Verstappen, and after the first race, I do believe it is more leaning towards Carlos Sainz.
Do
He
you
broke the
think-
villain arc.
Do you think he can take a fight to Verstappen then?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Monza last
the only
year. He
reason
held him
why-
off for like 30 odd laps.
The only reason why he didn't from the start of Bahrain and why Max got so far ahead is because Sainz started further back and had to leapfrog everyone, had to get in front of everyone. If he'd have started on that front row, he would have. He easily could have gone for it. He easily could have, but they prioritised Leclerc instead.
What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia as well as a race? Because that first one, in 2021 was an OG race for the history book.
I don't
Since
think
then,
I've ever told you about this. I didn't get to see any of that race. I was working. I got back home and I remember getting in, and this was like 11 o'clock at night because working in the kitchen, you finish late and whatever. I remember getting back in, and my mum said to me, "You need to watch that race." And I remember watching it back, and I was like, "Oh my god, that was." I mean, personally, I think forget about all the goings on off the track. I think it's a fantastic circuit. It's fast. You've got long straights, fast corners. Walls that are really close, which obviously brings a load more excitement. Because it's regarded as a street track, but where's the street
On a technicality, is a street track. It's not a street track.
I think forget about all the issues going on off track. Obviously, I know it's hard to because it's Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of things there that aren't exactly ethical or however different people view it. But as a racetrack, for what it's used for, I think it's brilliant. So it always brings entertainment, no matter what series it is. Formula 2, Formula 1, high-speed entertainment is always bought at Saudi Arabia.
Was it Lance Stroll's crash there last year in qualifying, wasn't it? It was that Singapore?
That was Singapore.
Oh, Singapore. There was the Mick Schumacher one a couple of years back. That was massive.
And then same year there was Enzo Fittipaldi, I think it was, in Formula 2. He actually, it was a horrible crash. He ended up breaking both of his heels. So because he stalled the car on the grid and someone went into the back of him, or vice versa.
I also agree with you, Ollie. I've got a lot of time for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix just because of how thrilling it is in terms of the speed spectacle around it. Because that's what Formula 1's all about. Formula 1 is the pinnacle of motorsport. It's the quickest, technically. And that track sums up everything we love about it because of how quick it is. ignoring all the stuff that goes off track, because that's not the reason why we're there. We're there for the thrill of it, and we're there to go racing. As much, I don't want to say ignore everything off track, because that's not what we need to do.
No, but to be fair, now we have mentioned it all and we have spoken on it, then it will be interesting to be able to start reporting on matters surrounding it. And I'll probably do another media day TikTok and see what the drivers come out and say, because I reckon a lot of it will be to do off the track this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. But I think that's everything covered, boys.
I think
that rounds up round 1 of the 2024 season.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. First race of the season done. We'll be back again next Tuesday when the episode will be released. Next Monday, obviously, us three will be recording. But thank you for listening. Join us next week. Watch our TikToks, our Instagram Reels. Follow us on Twitter at Trackside Podcast F1 on all of our socials. And we will see you next week. Thank you for listening/watching.